Consent. A word I thought was never going to be used in the context of a video game. I am quite sure that the sentiment of invasions should be optional is something that many Elden gamers would agree with. Some people don't like getting their co-op experience interrupted, as they put it. For those of you who may be unfamiliar, Elden Ring allows you to play the game doing co-op with other gamers or friends by summoning them to your world, which in turn makes you available to get invaded by a hostile player who will try to halt your progress. It was not uncommon to invade gamers only to have them either give up or disconnect immediately or after their numbers advantage was cut short, and I believe this was just because they didn't want to get invaded but had no other choice. A sound-minded individual usually acknowledges this as an interesting feature and either likes or dislikes it before moving on with their game experience. But a big portion of Elden gamers really hate having their co-op disrupted, and they make sure to bend this on social media. Getting invaded is never fun. It's always an annoying waste of time. Everyone who isn't an invader hates it. They are never honorable duelists. They always use the most generic cheese builds. Run away into a group of AI enemies to try and bait you, and spam status builds. You can't play with your friends and have fun together without some fingerprint shield user hiding behind an army of AI goons. It ruins the experience. Nah, I mean, it doesn't ruin the experience. It is part of the experience. Why do you feel the feature ruins the whole package? Because you're not guaranteed to beat them? I know it's not what you said, but if they ruin the experience because they are an obstacle to beat, why doesn't any of the PvE ruin the experience then? It's also not like invaders are unbeatable. See, they are pretty easy to beat, and the things you mentioned they use kinda suck ass for invasions anyway, so I don't know what you're talking about. Agreed. I don't want forced PvP when I play with my friends. Then I'm sorry, but this game is not for you. Play a game that doesn't have forced PvP. It is an ethics issue if you believe you are entitled to force your PvP build onto someone who wants to play PvE with his buddies, has no interest in PvP skills or builds, and therefore no experience. You are not looking for a fun experience for everyone involved. You are looking for a victim. Nyam, nyam, nyam. Victims? What's next? Invaders are like scoopers? Oh, right. Look. As the game stands, if you summon, you get invaded, and you willingly summoned, so you willingly allowed invaders into your world. And it doesn't matter what your build is, you have the numbers advantage. Ever seen that Iron Pineapple video where they beat a guy simply by rolling into him? Yeah, it can be that easy to beat an invader. Because I want to get through the already tedious task of navigating dungeons and not deal with an unknown element out to waste my time and resources I need for the boss fight. Mwah. First, you're navigating the dungeon with someone else. Don't pretend you're facing this alone, because you can't get invaded when you are playing alone. Second, are you implying that playing the game is a tedious task to you? Maybe you should play something else?
No.
And I can already see some of you brutally assaulting the keyboard, writing how I make fun of PvE players. But that isn't the case. There's nothing wrong with simply disliking PvP and preferring the PvE experience. But there's a huge difference between that and claiming that PvE players are victims of abuse and bullying just because they lose at a game mechanic they willingly partake in. Seriously, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Imbécil!
So as you can see, they are not happy, Bob. Not happy. In fact, some of them disliked invasions so much that they resorted to playing the game in Seamless Co-op, a mod created by Luke Yui, which already has a dedicated video on this channel. In the earlier days of the mod, aside from having much better multiplayer features than vanilla Elden Ring, the lands between were an invader-free utopia, as invasions were not coded into the mod yet, and players were free to engage in uninterrupted co-op with their friends. However, recent patches have included invasions in Seamless Co-op while also balancing them a bit more to make the experience much more interactive for everyone. Naturally, when invaded on Seamless, we will still see people giving up either instantly or the moment they lose the odds stacked in their favor, but there is a big difference this time. Invasions are actually consensual in Seamless Co-op. So, why are gamers still behaving like this?
Barani, what do you mean invasions are consensual? By the mere definition of the word, an invasion is an unwelcome intrusion into another's domain. A consensual invasion is just an oxymoron.
So he does display intelligence sometimes.
To answer Betty's question, when you open the .ini file to set a password in order to be able to play Seamless, you are greeted at the top of the file with a text that reads the following. Invaders are other players that will join your world uninvited to try and kill you and your party. Allow invaders? 0 for false, 1 for true. This means that if you wish to do so, you can just disable invasions to not have to engage with them at all. But if invasions can just be disabled if you do not wish to interact with them, how come there's players running around who still behave as if you just initiated non-consensual PvP with them? Take for instance these guys here. We invade 3 people in the Halik tree and quickly dispose of one of them because that one guy clearly didn't watch our videos saying that vigor is important. The others seem to be getting ready to fight, but one of them jumps off the ledge, and a few seconds later, the other one follows. Okay, but why though? Or how about these 2 guys in here? They are both next to the site of grace and right in the middle of Lingrave. There's literally 0 risk for them in any way. They both also ferociously launch at me with all they got without hesitation. They briefly part ways for some reason and I get to be alone with one of them, so I proceed to perform my magic and erase them from this universe. The little younger dies, and what does his friend do? Do you think he will man up and fight with honor to the death?
Oh my god, bro.
No, of course not. He fucking disconnects. Once again, why? You wanted this until you suddenly didn't for some reason. Well, if you allow me to wear my tinfoil hat, I don't think it ever was about consent or co-op.
This is just a theory, my opinion.
If you ask me, I think a fair amount of invasion haters operate solely on ego than anything else. Of course, when I say this, I'm not placing every person who believes invasions should be optional in the same bag, but there seems to be a portion of players who only dislike invasions because they don't have the skill to beat invaders and disguise their molding under the pretext of I just want to co-op with my friend uninterruptedly. I mean, I know it is quite possible we are talking about different groups of people here, but considering that Seamless is the mod where people who want to avoid invasions use, why are there so many Seamless players doing this type of shit? Why behave the same way that vanilla Elden Ring players do if you have the option to literally just not engage? You may argue that they simply overlooked the option to disable them, but do we really have to drop the "that sign won't stop me because I can't read" meme?
You tell me what that says, I can't read.
Why do you like ruining people's experience so much? All your videos are about you invading other players and ruining their fun when they clearly don't want to get invaded. You are just a grifter. I invade in Seamless Co-op. You can disable invasions in Seamless Co-op if you wish to do so. So what if you can disable invasions? Maybe they didn't want to get a tryhard cheeser invade at the time and they leave invasion zone. That doesn't mean they wanna PvP. Why do you have to keep invaded and ruining people's experience? Silly me. I guess that leaving the option to PvP enabled doesn't mean that you want to PvP. Mira las pelotudeces que tengo que leer la reconcha de mi madre. But that aside, there was one invasion that perfectly illustrates what I mean with my tinfoil hat conspiracy. We invaded in the DLC when recording for our Great Sword of Damnation video and ran into 2 guys. One of them was a dedicated mage, and you know what that fucking means. The whole invasion, that guy was in the backline throwing spells. Seriously, it was one of the most aggravating invasion experiences I've ever had. It was just collapsing star spam, one after the other, which wouldn't be so bad if there wasn't a guy in the front line trying to kill me. The invasion dragged on for quite a long time. Both of them had very high latency and roll catching them wasn't really possible, so I had to rely on them fucking up. The whole time, I would see collapsing black bolas being thrown into my face. It was a fucking nightmare. After a long and annoying chase, I managed to beat the melee guy, leaving only the mage. And what does the mage do?
Kill me now!
He did exactly what you think. He clearly seemed very enthusiastic about fighting when his friend was alive. What's the issue now?
But Rani, maybe he just realized he was no match and simply surrendered in the face of inevitable annihilation.
¿Siempre fue tan elocuente este tipo?
All right, Betty. Fair point. Fair point. He could have just simply surrendered and accepted his demise. It's a possibility. However, try to explain this one. We invaded the DLC yet again when we ran into 2 guys. The fight proceeds like normal, extending a bit due to the high latency, but nothing weird or out of the ordinary happens. We slap one of the guys in the face and finish him off with Reddit's most hated technique, the hard swap. Great! Only one guy left. We apply a debuff on him that prevents him from chugging his yoo-hoo and chuckle when he attempts to do so, but just a few moments later... He called Mom to pull the plug. What's funny is that this absolute goober even bowed at the beginning of the invasion. It's all fun and honor until you're going to lose, huh? The funniest part is that the site of grace is just a few feet down the hallway. So the only reason he could have pulled the plug was simple pettiness. He didn't want to give us the satisfaction of dealing the final smash on him. And it's not exclusive to higher or lower level brackets either. It happens everywhere. At around level 50, we ran into two guys who were very aggressive and actually well suited for low-level PvP. However, the moment one of them bit the dust, the other didn't even hesitate to pull the plug. That was like Olympic levels of quick plug pulling. Insane. Same thing with a fight against a Mali Kevin and his friend. The fight dragged on for 5 whole minutes. 5 whole minutes of fighting two very aggressive and laggy guys determined to end me at all costs. But as soon as Mali Kevin died, it happened. Why?
I don't know.
You suddenly lost all interest in PvP right after your friend died? Very suspicious if you ask me. However, if you're used to doing this whenever you're about to lose an invasion, keep this in mind. We love a great disconnect. You are giving us the satisfaction of knowing that we were too much for you to handle. So you folded under the pressure like origami. The best thing you can do for you is just take the L with dignity. Anything else is just bonus points for us. But yeah, considering the nature of invasions in Seamless Co-op, we find this behavior pretty ironic. If Seamless Co-op didn't exist, I am pretty sure that these guys will just spew nonsense about uninterrupted co-op or some shit like that. It is quite enlightening to see that for some people, it never was about fun or consent. It was about bullying a single player as a group of 2 or 3. But the moment the table turns, they just call Mom for assistance. So don't be like these losers. If you play on Seamless and don't want to get invaded, just fucking disable them. Don't pussy out. And yeah, that's about it. Ciao.